Good afternoon. It's Sunday. How is it Sunday already? So, I have made some progress. I shared with you yesterday my join, and I wasn't unhappy with it. Always having a nutty moment in the garden, that's okay. So, I have been giving thought as to how I could achieve a single thread at one side. And, in the immortal words, it came to me in a dream. So, while yesterday I started a strip, and I was kind of excited because, well, making a third strip to have a go at, improving the join and maybe doing it slightly differently, I find myself making another test. So now I have 2 strips on the go. Well, I say 2, one and most of one. And when I say most one, that elastic band's not going to last. Actually, it might. Doesn't look like it though. I know you can't see what I'm doing. Worry not. But, so, testing number 2. I keep wanting to call it testee, which could be misconstrued after all. Testing number 2 is underway. And I thought I'd show you a little bit of it. Now, you're not going to see very much, so don't be too excited at this point. We're not going to be joining any corners because I haven't made the strip yet. Now, I am using some thread, which I absolutely hate. And I've got a lot of, as it turns out, because I was really excited before I used it about what it should be. And, well, it proved to be slightly, disappointing is the word for it. In that it breaks real frickin' easy. And it's very, very shiny and slippery and, frankly, everything I don't need in my life. And that's not worked out. So it's just snapped on me there. So I need to tidy that end up. And I need to tidy that end up. Let's do that again. Part of the reason it is so fragile is not because of what it's made of. Now, what it's made of is supposed to be really quite strong, and technically it is. The problem is that the thread itself is very low twist, and twist holds things together and gives them strength, which is why a rope that is nicely twisted and, kind of twisted to the point that it's kind of full on itself, so it looks more like a tube, is stronger than just a bunch of threads of the same threads, not twisted. It gives them strength. It gives them something to hold on to and make friends with. So, a very low twist on this stuff, well, it kind of weakens it. And, well, don't it just. But, as it was already on some bobbins, I thought I'd use them because, well, they're here. So, I've also been sticking foam to some of my sticks to give it a little bit of purchase to stop the shiny bobbins sliding about. And it's not going to stick it forever, don't get me wrong. And it's not really the kind of foam that I wanted. I wanted much more mushy foam. This is a much more dense foam. So I wanted mushy foam so that the bobbins kind of sat into it and kind of cushioned them, for want of a better word. Whereas this is much more gap filler kind of foam. And And it's not wrong. I mean, you know, it can still potentially do the job, but it's not likely to do the job as well as what I wanted. So that can be a problem. That's right. I'm trying to untangle this bobbin. There we go. So I'm going to briefly show you some of this, give it a chance. I'm just putting sin hats on to hold it still, because, well, it is kind of very shiny thread and will very much scoot round and fall off and drive me insane, so don't be needing that in a hurry. So let's let me. So I have ignored the pattern on the thing. We're not going to be following it. We're just kind of going along with the dots, to be honest. And as this has dots all over it, no gaps, it made it a good example without me having to print, laminate, faff. It will do. Right. I also don't have to follow any of the shaping or anything, but it just kind of... Here I am. So... now, this will look, to the untrained eye, very similar to what I normally do, but let me assure you, for it is not. For this is, in the immortal words, the same way they do chantilly lace. Which is, in Buck's Point you do cross twist twist, in chantilly you do twist twist cross. And in my mind it sits better to follow their example, just because you need a bit of twisting before you start, and then once you've started a couple of twists beforehand, you might as well keep it up. And what is... let me turn this TV off again. For once again, they have started doing weird shit the moment I'm streaming. Normally it's just kind of talking and you know, and then suddenly the moment I go on stream, they like put people in blenders or something. I don't know what they do. So I'm gonna do another... I need 6 more bobbins to complete this test that I'm gonna do. And of course I've tried to remove 6 bobbins out of a pack, and what happened? Well, basically I got the only 2 left in the pack were the ones that I were trying to pull out. Well, that's kind of a thing. Dogs are doing dog things. Dogs! 2, 3. Why am I only using 3 more when there's many more dots? Well, there's a really good answer to that. Because 3 will take me to halfway, and I've only got that many more bobbins with stuff on, so I might as well use the ones that I've got. I could use all of them, but, well, do I really need it to be this big? No. Now, one of the big problems with changing lace styles is that it does mean that the pattern I had made with the snakes and was getting quite excited about doesn't work. Actually doesn't work. You can't do them in this. Now, technically there's no reason why not, except that it just kind of doesn't work. You don't really mix the two together. Normally, this particular style of lace is done on a 60-degree grid. Now, you can do Buck's Point on 45. It is, you know, it's not a common thing. But since when was I common? I've always been a bit weird. So, I stuck with this because it was already made. But it's turning out alright, actually. It might be possible to do some spidery things with it. The only thing I hate about these sin bands is that if you have even the minutest ruffle in, like with this, these sticky up bits, if you have anything like that, the elastic band grabs onto it for dear life. What are you and your brother doing now? Well, it is a little, but I have cracked the single thread at the edge. I have, my friends. I truly, truly have. What I have not cracked is why all these little elastic bands are all shriveled up like maggots. But I have indeed cracked. Now, for all reasons, yeah, I mean, it is one of those weird things, is that it matters, but it also kind of doesn't matter, depending, because as we know, Liz does not overly do flowers, for which, basically, that's what this shit was designed for. It is designed to make circular things, and flowers, generally, are they. So, with that in mind, finding something that I could do as a lace pattern within this that is not flowers is kind of a tough call. So, however, I want to prove, before I even bother remotely, same shit as usual, but just different flavour. So hence, bobbins, pins, table. In fact, the original strip I designed that fucked up, I have, that's why that's on my pillow. I'm just putting elastic bands on the top of my bobbins so that I don't go insane. And then I'm going to join some together and put them around the pin. The dogs are all excited. Now, I was going to start streaming earlier, but then, I mean, I'm going to sound like really rich and snobby, but I have a man who comes and does my gardening. He is very cheap, frankly. Almost too cheap. And I hate gardening. I suck at it. So, I wish to encourage him to keep coming. And he was mowing the lawn and the dogs were going absolutely nuts. So, didn't really want to stream because my tolerances of whiny dogs is small, as you are well aware. And so, I needed to wait till he'd left. Partly because, well, he'd also ring the doorbell and, stuff. So, that's also a thing. Let's do that. Right. That's a bit short. There we go. Right. So normally, on this grid, you would see me do cross twist, pin, cross twist. With these, you do... Why is that one? Why is this pre-twisted? I literally... Oh no, it's not, it's just thing. So you do 2 twists and a cross. And then you put the pin in the middle. Like that. And then you do twist, twist, cross. And put pin in the middle. So it's kind of... I mean, you still end up working at a 45-degree angle. You still, from that point of view, to the uninitiated, it is very similar. But the astute amongst you Well, note that cross, twist, cross means that the two are on the right end up on the left. With this, you do 2 twists so they end up back where they started, and then a single cross in the middle. So only 2 of them swap. The hint as to how you do the single thread is there. So, hence, I've got, well, it is an even number of bobbins, but I've got 2 single but pairs on the edges. It's because you need a single pair, because once you've done the crossy twisty bit, you need one to sod off and do a kind of victory lap. So this comes in here like that. And you do, doesn't help with the knots, of course, you do twist, twist, because this is nothing to do with it, and then across. So this goes. So, why is my brain farted? Because that's because he does make some really cool shit. He is our knot guru, right? So now I'm trying to remember what the fuck I did the other side, because it all worked out. So you need to go out one, like that, and back. Because what would normally happen is that these two would twist and cross, but they're not going to, because there's nothing to cross with it in. Therefore, I'm not sure whether I should be twisting first. Oh, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. We're not going to do too much of this because we are trying to do the finish the triangle after all. So, let's bring back some bobbins. And we got to kind of here. So. Now, we're going to make a smaller strip with this, because, you know, we're just going to make a smaller strip. And then we're going to see if I have achieved my intention. Oi! Which we won't be seeing today. Well, at least not on stream. I'm not going to do that much of it, but I thought I would share that I have had a dream in which I potentially have solved my problem. And the dogs are all excited because, of course, they can be. So they're out in the garden doing growly games. Which is fine, as long as it remains games. Now, these knots are really awkward. So seeing where I'm at is harder than it sounds. Actually, hang on. No, you're right. But you see, that doesn't seem quite right. Maybe it will be. Maybe it'll just be the first one that's a bit shit, and it will play out in the long run. This is not feeling as good as the other side, which somehow now my brain is farting, going, well, how did I make that work? I'm wondering if I'd made that two and that go around there. Maybe. My brain is struggling to comprehend how I did the other side now. And it was, you know how like it was already clear until you thought about it and now it doesn't work? So you're coming out of... The other problem is you get two pins and two threads hanging between them. And it doesn't tell you which side it was supposed to be on. Because, of course, they don't really have sides, if that makes sense. And yeah, my brain's... Now I'm talking to you, my brain's just completely fucked all of this shit up in its head, and it doesn't make any sense now. So you come off that pin, you come off that pin. You and you... See, this is why I hate this stuff. So let's undo this. Undo you. I know pulling all the pins out was not the answer, but sometimes it just is, you know. So, you need to come out from under there. Go over here. Oh, I know why it doesn't work. Fucking donut. It's not a pair of bobbins on the end. Now, where's your friend? You're there. So let me Well, you can't both be true. You can't both be attached to the same bobbin. Take you out. So, how far back do I need to go to sort you out? And the answer is a lot more than I am comfortable with, because of course that's the case. Because I can't see any of this. I don't know why I'm pretending like I can see this. I can't visibly actually make out the thread. It's so tiny. So I can't see where it goes, and because unlike torchon where you do a dance round a pin and the threads then come from the pin because they all kind of go round the roundabout kind of thing, because you don't have that with this, it does make it really difficult when you stop or when you put it down for 3 seconds. For goodness sake, really? Do I undo this row as well, have I? Okay. Of course I do. This is when my patience is not suitable for this hobby. Because, you know, it feels almost like I pick it up to show you, it all falls apart in my hands, you know? I mean, it hasn't, but it kind of did at the same time. One bobbin let rip, but of course it had to be a bobbin from 20 minutes ago. It couldn't be one of the ones I've just done. And this was part of the reason I gave up using this thread in the first place, was because it just lets rip. And as I say, because this doesn't have, you know, the quote covering the pin, where you pick your thread. See, I haven't found where this single pin thread is yet. It's got to be around here somewhere. There it is. Oh, for goodness sake. It's even further back. This is ridiculous. There it is. It's one of you. But somehow, it's not one of you, but you're attached to one of you. How is it attached to one of you? Oh, I know why. It is one of you. It's attached to one of you because, of course... fuck's sake. So basically, all the work I've done since I thought I'd worked it out has got to be undone so that I can now rejoin 2 bobbins together. This, my friends, is why I do not have patience for this shit. And as you know, I'm not very good at seeing where the pins are, so I don't really want to pull out more than I have to. But at some point, this is going to go really Pete Tong, because we're going to come across the other half of the... Oh. Why do my feet hurt so much when I sit with them? Oh, fuck off, spam bots! You really would think that because they say the same bloody shit every time, pretty much, that Twitch would be able to catch them. Because if I can, fairly reliably, using Twitch's tool, you really would think... I don't. I have literally none. I mean, come on, you've seen me lose my shit a couple of times. I absolutely do not have patience. And these hobbies really are going to be the death of us one day. Come on. Where are you? What are you stuck on? I know you're around here somewhere. Everything seems to be a bloody pair, and I know one of them isn't. And because I can't see which way round threads are twisted, it really doesn't help, you know? Oh, come on, it was not back this far. One of you has not got a friend. Yeah, is it me or they all have friends? And now I've got fucking itches. Where's my back scratchy skin ripper? There it is. In case you don't know what I mean. Look at the teeth on this thing. It's a thing of glory when it comes to back scratching. And for anyone who doesn't wear a bra, you do not understand. Oh. Right. Now I might be able to have 2 seconds to think about what the hell's going on here. So, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. You are all pairs. So somehow, despite removing a shitload of pairs, I've managed to undo the single. How the f did I manage that? Okay, let's put you back on. And another one. You're a pair, so you can go on that pinhole, like that, along with you. You're a pet. You go on that pinhole. And you're a pair. And you go on that pinhole. You're joined. Now I need one. This is why it wasn't adding up. For I do not need a pair of bobbins. I need a bobbin. And I need to tie a knot, put you down, put in a pin, and tie you round the pin for the moment, because, well, you've got nothing else to hang on to. So, right, you get to go over there. So let's try this again, children, and redo half the work that I did before stream. Well, most of the work I did before stream. So right, you are coming off there, so it's your turn. So, before I get carried away, can't see what the hell's going on for knots. I don't know what it is, but when I'm doing this, I tend to tuck my feet back against the couch. So my feet aren't under my knees, they're behind my knees, back a bit more underneath me. And then I lean forward. And, well, then of course, that gives me the problem that I'm... See, you're a pair, so... Well... Must be you two? I don't know, because I can't see through the bloody knots. There's too much fluff of knots going on. You're a bit short. Undo you slightly. And undo you slightly. There we go. Two. I think... Done you. So yeah, it's got to be you. So it'll be a little while before we... So I thought I had the wrong end of the pin. It was being that kind of awkward. I don't want to pick up new ones. I've got plenty up here. So it's going to be a little bit before we get to the what happens with the single bobbin aspect. And so for those who were around on Monday with me trying to explain it very, very badly, and even more so because it was off camera, this may help answer, well, this should answer my problem. Now, the lovely join that we did yesterday, I'm still not hating on it, but if I've got this right, hallelujah. But as I did say, you don't really do spiders, and so the snag is not going to really be an option in this style of lace. Now, part of me says, well, why not? Because you still can do some twists, and then all it has to do is go to the middle and do a bit of a fancy jig round a pin and come out again. So why can't it? And the answer is, well, that's a really good question, and maybe we should try it. Maybe we should do a couple of little baby spidery things and see if it works out. Not quite sure where I... Right, so you're a pair, you're a pair, you're a pair, you're a pair. By the way, the pairs don't stay together in this style of lace. So, you see, you just don't feel right to me. Because if you come out, you need to go in between with you. So you have to, I have to do you next. Like that. And then we do you. Itch, itch. I am itching because I swear all my nerves are attached to brain cells, and the moment they work, all my nerves just go mad because, you know, the brain cell they were talking to is not, you know, sitting there singing them lullabies or something. Because literally, the more I think, the more migraines I get, the more itchy I get, the more spotty I get. Because I'm aware my back's got some spots on it. I can't see them, but I am aware there are spots there before I have picked them, as a good child would. So I know that they're there. Right, I think you two and you are up next. So it's twisty, cross. And this is where the magic happens. For now, there is only the one, and it gets a pin. You twisty, twisty, cross. Go that way. Twisty, twisty, cross. Twisty, twisty, cross. Twisty, twisty, cross. Now, cross twisty, twisty does feel more natural. However, in not having twisted threads dangling past the pin, it does make it easier to know you haven't done that bit, or the way, you know, to an extent where you stopped. Because obviously, if the twists kind of join in, so if they were like this now, all of these pairs are twisted, and you'd think it'd be easier to see, but somehow it actually isn't. It's not entirely making sense to me right now. But, you know, going with the flow and all that kind of shit. But if I zoom in, because I'm going to have to zoom in quite hard for this, I think. And let me zoom up a little bit. Bear in mind you can't see a lot for the pin heads, right? And some of that is due to the angle. But you can possibly, hopefully, as I say, I can't see shit because it's a 2-inch screen. Hang on. Full screen. So, there's some bad shenanigans going on just about here. Lord knows what happened there, actually. I have no idea what happened there. But whatever happened there was bad. But, yeah, I really don't know quite what happened there, actually. So the other problem with this is that it's very easy for the holes not to be regular shaped, whereas obviously with torsion, because they travel in a 45-degree grid and they keep their shape and all of that kind of stuff, it works. So this thread here is coming down like that, just to kind of. So I really don't know what happened. This bit here, it could just be there's a knot and it makes it look worse, to be honest, because there are little knots all over it. But let us do a bit more and see how it's going. I'll leave you zoomed in so that you can see a bit more from a yarn perspective what is occurring. So you now twisty, twisty, cross. And I need a pin, so you go in there, and then you, without anything happening, go around that pin, and then twisty, twisty, cross, and you go up there like that. Twisty, twisty, cross. Okay. See, how did this pin looks? It looks so much lower, but it's actually the same holes. I straighten it a bit. Not a lot. it's actually the same holes. This is why pins really mask what the errors, because you can look at them and it makes it look like it's like a whole level out and it's not, or it makes it look right and it's not, and it makes it look wrong and it's not, and it really doesn't help. So, twisty, twisty, cross. Give us a pin. So, twisty, twisty, no. Twisty, twisty, cross. And another pin. The edge. I mean, this should be wide enough for a test. I mean, it's not a very good test, but we'll do kind of... I'll make 2 chunks that are just about big enough. 4, I don't really want to spend and commit my entire life to making plain boring strips because I haven't worked out how to do anything fancy on it. And then discover it doesn't work, you know? It looks so untidy, doesn't it? Doesn't that look really untidy? Is that not... Am I the only one that looks at that and thinks that it looks really untidy? So we need to make these bobbins all a bit longer. Now, one of the other interesting portions is because you do 2 twists and a cross, the bobbins don't travel as far as you might think. So under torsion, as you are aware, before I have explained it, that a bobbin pair here travels a 45-degree grid going downwards, making a mesh. These don't. These basically stay where they are and make slithery S shapes the whole way up. So the same thread is in one of a couple of places, kind of thing. But that's it. It doesn't transverse the whole board. So you can do a lot more with colour with it. And this is what I mean by catching on the thread, the tiniest blimp of a loose bit, and the thread catches on the elastic bands tangling it, which is really infuriating. This is where the thread snaps, because this thread does not have strength. This thread is terrible. It's not that it's not suitable for lace making, it's just not suitable for less experienced, because it really will play up the whole way. And I would class myself as not entirely in a good position. I'm not wrong. I know what I need to do to keep it happy. But at the same time, you know, putting a bit of pressure on it to keep the tension, to, you know, unwinding the bobbins because they occasionally stick like that one just did. You're unwinding it and it doesn't. And it, you know, because that's how the last one broke. I was unwinding it. It stuck. I gave it a little bit of pressure and, well, the thread snapped. And, you know, with all due respect, this is a level of test that, you know, does what my brain is thinking of even remotely come out into reality, or am I just, kind of, do I need to stop drinking coffee and sugar? Have I been making it up? And so I don't really want to be trying to hide joins of and all the rest of it, because again, because you only have the single cross where any two pairs meet, once again, it kind of makes that difficult, because, well, it's not really got anywhere you can make a hide of a new thread, which is, well, a little bit awkward, to say the least. See, this one's all jammed up because there's just the tiniest, loosest chunk that it's decided to throw in. That's still a bit short. Just lie down, dog. You're now too long. Good boy. Getting sore shoulders. So today's going to be one of those days. Ever since I did karate, my shoulders have issues supporting my arm weight for any period of time. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Just lie down! You were comfortable 2 seconds ago, just lie down. If I hold my arm out, not that you can really see it, let me zoom out. If I hold my arm out like this, the weight of your arm is too much for me. It's because standing there, punch, right? Well, you're standing there, punch, and Sensei will go off on like a 15-minute waffle. Well, the problem is with going off on a 15-minute waffle is that it actually almost like wore a hole in my joint. It's obviously not, but what I mean is there's a flat spot on a tyre, and to the point that my shoulders kind of lock up sometimes, and I actually feel it kind of go clunk as it goes over it. And what is wrong with you? 3 sleeping positions later, and he's decided to go off and try somewhere else, which makes me wonder if he's eaten something he shouldn't have and he's got gut ache or something. But yeah, I find supporting the weight of my arms very difficult, because instantly my shoulders go, we're not doing this again. And well, maybe you have to. Rory, can you just sit still? My left shoulder seems worse than the right one, and I know why that is, since I was right-handed. Now I know that you're thinking, so why left? When you're standing out front, put your left arm out so that this hand matches their hand. So his will be his strongest hand. Being right-handed, primarily, well then your left hand is also your weakest hand. So now your weakest arm is being held out the longest, and while you'd think it would do it some good, well, it'll do it some good if done in a slow, methodically practical manner, and not Sensei's just gone off on a 20-minute rant kind of manner, and your arm's going to drop off, because all that does is pull things, It's a bit like if I take your legs and put you into full block splits, whether you're good and ready or not, I've probably torn some stuff to get you there, right? Whereas if you practiced, well, there'd be a chance you might genuinely get there. And the answer is yes, you can get there, but it just takes a lot longer. And so it is that kind of thing. It's especially my left shoulder does do the clunky thing. I think what's really difficult, let me zoom back in. Hang on. I don't know if you can really see it, but these threads come between these two pins on a diagonal. These threads also come from a diagonal, but this one seems to be hooked more round this pin. These tend to feel like they're more in the middle, and so as a result you look at it and it doesn't feel like the threads are coming from the right places, even though they are, if that makes some sense. So I'm determined to do a little bit more of this, so see if we can practice the other edge. My dogs are going to be really annoying all day. So no, and there is actually nothing worse than, first of all, hello. Triangle 29 will be resuming shortly, but we're just off on a bit of a detour. This is to be known as testee number 2. All right, not as in testicles, testee as in test subject. Testee number 2. For we may have cracked the single thread down the outside, in which case we can join it absolutely invisibly as long as I don't screw it up, which is easier said than done given that this shit weighs nothing, right? Seriously, you have no idea how hard it is to hold like a cloud of nothing and trying to be sewing it together, and obviously you didn't see that because of course I've zoomed in, but I was, holding a cloud of nothing, and then you're trying to sew two clouds of nothing that don't want to stick together, because although the threads catch on each other, never where you want, and you can't pin them together, you can't, it's just, and as Flusenby says, there are a few things that annoy the snot out of me. One is when someone says, let's say I made one of these threads red by mistake, right? And someone goes, oh, I can't see it. You blind idiot. Either you've got an IQ less than my shoe size because it is bright red and you can't see it, or you are lying to try and make me feel better, but all that does is make me realise that I've already told you that there is a mistake. I am aware of it. Pretending it does not exist just comes over as patronising or just flat lies, It's the don't be telling me you can't see, because you have to be able to. It's too obvious for it not to be, right? So there are times, and so I find that infuriating. Don't be telling me you can't see a big, if you've got a repeating pattern, so let's say you're doing diamonds, and somehow, because you're weaving or whatever, or you're knitting, you screwed it up, and you missed a row, or you missed a column, or right? Don't be saying you can't see it, because it's a really logical repeating pattern. It stands out like a thumb, right? And so I do find that internety people who are trying to be nice fail terribly because, well, they're not being nice. They're making out that you must be some kind of idiot that you would believe they can't see that, right? Now, that's not their intention. Well, I'd like to think that's not their intention, but that's hopefully not their intention. But that's what they succeed in doing. Other issues are oh, I couldn't do that. Well, why not? Are you not capable of holding things? I mean, most of the crafts that we all do here involve picking something up, putting something down, maybe wrapping something round it. You couldn't do that? Well, I bet you could. You just haven't tried. And to the idiot who posted on my YouTube channel that this is a ridiculous hobby, you're the idiot who spent 2.5 hours watching through a replay of it on YouTube just to make that comment. So at least the people watching live get to interact with me. You spent 2.5 hours watching what you deem to be a ridiculous hobby. Well, I'm sorry. Which one of us is more stupid? The one who does it for 4 hours and is happy, or the idiot who thinks it's ridiculous but 2.5 hours is still watching? By the way, no, he can't comment on my videos anymore. So, good luck with that one. But it was highly insulting. Yeah, stuff him. But yeah, it is I haven't got the patience for that. I couldn't possibly do that as if, oh, well, I think you're so incredibly clever for following the instructions. Really? Yeah. Now, what I'm doing here has an element of cleverness to it, for I am trying to recreate some shit that I know is technically possible, but I do not have instructions for. Nor do I have really accurate pictures of any, so I can't be too inspired by it and stare at it. And plus, of course, the joins would be technically invisible, therefore, well, how would I know? So, now, in here somewhere. Where are you? You should be there. Like that. So, I do feel that this stands a really good chance of providing the mesh that I would like. Now, as I've said, the biggest problem is the pattern that I've been working isn't compatible with this mesh per se. But it is compatible with other meshes and other things. For it is the same thing that I made to use the 2 fancy bookmarks that I've made and all the rest of it. So I don't really want flowers on my neck curtain. I don't really do flowers. But I do think that I could maybe make some hexagony shape kind of things. It would, I mean, this is not the test for that, so hence we're just going to go with strange, boring mesh. But I do think that I think one of the biggest problems will be is because this will be fairly small. I'm only thinking of doing like 2 or 3 inches long and then making another. Well, frankly, I'll probably make one the full length and then chop it in half with a bit of glue, maybe. Don't know. Probably actually should do it proper. But one of the biggest issues is sewing it together carefully. Oh god, I shouldn't stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning then, should I? But I do find myself wondering what pattern I can put in it that's not flowery, that's decorative but not flowery. Because of course it has to fit in the constraint of the width of the strip that I make. So it can only be so wide. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Please don't think it's a bad thing. But it is a constraint. Oh, dear me. Yawning again already. Don't know why I'm yawning. I'm not actually that tired. But it does mean I would have to replan, because I was really excited. Well, excited's not the right word. Really keen on using those snakes down the side. But I don't think snakes will work. I don't think spiders in this style arguably work. Now, the other problem is, because it's a 45-degree grid and not the 60-degree grid, some things are going to look a little bit wonky with it. In that normally they'd come out circular, and of course in this way it'll be much more oval. Anyway, let's put this away. And as I was explaining earlier, I put some foamy stuff on the back of some of my sticks. Not many, but some of my sticks. So that it provides a little bit of grip against these flatter bobbins, so that they don't... Well, they still slide out, because obviously, you know, it's not pinned in. But it does kind of help give them a little bit of grip, shall we call it. So, here we go. But I may have cracked. The whole ordeal, the whole point of showing you this today was I may have cracked how to do the invisible join, absolutely invisible. For now I have found a way to make the single thread at the edge, which means when I go to join it, it will only be 2 like the rest. So, bear with me one moment as I faff around and move test number 1 out the way and put test number 2 on top. Wait for it to land on my head later. Grab pillow number 1. Oh, there's a runaway bobbin. Hang on. There's a runaway bobbin under here. That one up. Pull you out. Put you back in the pile of bobbins. So that I don't well, it's not that I'll lose you, but it's easier if you're all clumped together. Put test number 2 over here so they don't fall on my head. Why does that feel like I just broke my glasses? Felt like something gave on my glasses. Okay, so you are both firmly pushed away. And now we are back to the beloved triangle. With all of the tangled threads that it brings. Bobbins are evil. Bobbins are like trying to hold on to water snakes. You know those, and I have to be very careful. Do you remember the little tubes that you grabbed and they kind of squirted out the top, and that you ended up kind of shaking backwards and forwards in a most unfortunate matter? I never had one as a kid. Well, that's not quite true. I always wanted one as a kid ever since they came out, and my parents wouldn't get me one because we couldn't really afford it. And I never saw any for sale. Right? Well, my mother booked a holiday for me and her. I say holiday, it's a day trip, right? But she booked this holiday thing for us. Venture holidays. You had venture coaches and you went places, right? And we went to the Isle of Wight. Now, this was my second trip to the Isle of Wight, but we went to the Isle of Wight. And while we were there, with my pocket money, I managed to find a water snake. So I bought it. God, I loved that thing. Next morning, BBC News. Oh, there's been a product recall because they're full of contaminated water. My mother had to take it down the police station, and the police wouldn't touch it. It's a frigging water snake, right? I had that thing for like 2 waking hours that I got to touch it, right? Anyway, on hearing this story, my ex-husband felt sorry for me. And when I was in hospital, he bought me one. Now, I'm going to make the motion, so for all those who are easily offended, please look away. But when you sit there doing this with it, because I like the feel of the rocking motion, it got taken away again. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't doing it for that reason, obviously, but it's what it looked like, and yeah, it got taken away again. My parents did not approve, so they took it away again. Which reminds me, actually, do they have any on Amazon? Let me quickly look this one up, because, you know, I'm a grown adult of 52. Me, if I want a water snake, I want a water snake. Hang on. Snake. Fidget toy. Here we go. They do still make them. Looks like they still make them. The problem is I don't want it to look like a kid's armband. Where's like a... And bad for your pocket. Why do they all look like random bloody... I bet you they don't work as well as they used to. I bet you they don't. I really, really doubt they work as well as... I really, really, really doubt. So I've got one. I can have a pack of 4 for 10 quid. But they have like sea animals on them. I can have one 12cm one for 8 quid. Well, we're an adult. We're entitled to some joy. Clownfish. Oh, they look like, hang on. These are just glittery. I mean, 2 of them are pink. Oh, random colour. Random colours. Does it show? Trying to work out how big they are. Because if they're too small, it's not really worth it, right? Yeah, I guess that's... Where's my tape? Where's a tape measure when you want one? Hang on. Need a tape measure. Hang on. I am determined now. There's one. I am determined. So, actually, that's not too bad. That's not as bad as it sounds, actually. I might get me some glittery ones, because at least they haven't, although that's not a deliver tomorrow job, but let's stick that in my basket for now to keep hold of it. 24cm one's too long, don't want that. Don't you want a clownfish? That definitely don't need fucking baby shark. Okay. You say you're small. Yeah, if you're small, you're probably too small. That's a really good point. On the subject of things that I want that I have never owned. Lava lamps. Could really do with a lava lamp. I don't want volcano, that's not what I'm after. Well, that's interesting. There's one here where it's clear liquid and white gloop. But you change the colours of the gloop by changing the colour of the light. Does it have, and it's got a remote control. So you can have it like changing colour. The gloop, so the gloop changes colour rather than... Oh, that looks a bit top heavy. It's 15 inches tall and only 3.5 inches wide at the base. Surely you want them a bit bigger at the base than that. Quite like the idea of that. It's a bit more expensive than I'd hoped, but let's stick that on a thing and look around. That looks like a cheaper version of the one I just looked at. This is marginally wider at the base, but not a lot. Holy crap, I'm not paying £90 for one. I don't care if it's the original retro. I don't care if it was the first invention of it. I'm not paying £90 for a fucking lava lamp. I've got standards, you know. Why is this one called graffiti? And how does it... Oh, it's just got blotches of colour on the glass. Okay, well, that's kind of boring. I know I should be paying you more attention. I apologise, but... Jellyfish ones. Lava lamps with remote controlled jellyfish. It's a bit weird. Oh, I wanted one of these. Don't suppose it's Alexa friendly, is it? Why do they never make these things Alexa friendly? Or, you know. No, I definitely want one of these. Changed my mind. Not getting a lava lamp. I'm getting an basically one of those ones that project like moving water on the walls. It makes you feel like you're underwater. And considering it's £14, definitely going to be doing something like that. So, we're going to not do the lava lamp. We're going to get some water snakes, a teapot, and a glowy lampy thing. There we go. Some of them will arrive tomorrow, which is the glowy lampy thing and the teapot. The water snakes will take a bit longer, typical. But I will own and possess water snakes. Oh, I got it in my head. I need water snakes now. But it is funny how things like that haunt you from your childhood. A toy you never had, even if it was the shittest thing. Thanks, Naughty Cow, bastard. But it is there. I just need a water snake, and I need to sit there, and I can. You know what will happen? I'll be sitting there playing with it in meetings, doing the aforementioned action. Thankfully, we don't do video. One of the best things about where I work is that primarily video conference calls are deemed inappropriate. Yeah, snake. I'm a snake. Yeah, I think going along with the snake theme, I had to order me some water snake, right? I had to get me a water snake. It just wouldn't have been right without. Plus, of course, my childhood dreams of owning one can finally be fulfilled. And I don't know why it's taken me another 25 frigging years to actually realise that now I'm not bound by husband, parents, or otherwise. So no one can stop me from having a water snake. And moreover, I don't care if the action that brings me joy is the most inappropriate action on the planet, because, well, frankly, it is. But I don't care that this is the thing that brings me joy. It brings me joy. Bite me, you know. But it is. Oh, I need me a water snake for a laugh. I mean, they're bound not to be a patch on the ones that were around when I was a kid. Because they're just not. Nothing ever is. We know that, right? We know that it's going to, pretty much, while it says it's a pack of 4, 2 of them will arrive broken, and it will be, the 2 pink ones will be the ones left, and I'll grab one and it will explode in my face and the dog will bite the other one. So come on, we know that this is going to happen, but at the same time, I can have me water snake. I need pins. Pin. I can have me water snake. Why did I not think of that before? Reminds me of when I did A-levels. I did A-levels, right? Well, I didn't, but I tried to do A-levels. And when I was at my secondary school, I started A-levels, and it was like, well, because you didn't get an A in maths, we can't possibly let you do pure and applied, which is what I wanted to do. But you can do statistics. I want to do statistics. Well, but the problem is with maths, as anyone who's done maths at A-level in the UK will tell you, the biggest point of doing maths is if you do 2 lots of maths, whether it's pure and applied or statistics, and then just maths, right? You don't come out with 2 A-levels. You come out with 3. So you do, say, maths, you do statistics, and then you get, in effect, maths and statistics. So it's like a free A-level. And so I really wanted to do pure and applied because, well, that interests me. But school said I couldn't do it. So when I left school and signed up at the local college, I assumed the same applied. So when they asked me what subjects I wanted to do, I said statistics, because I didn't think I could do pure and applied, and of course I hated statistics. So as a result, I didn't go, because I fucking hated it. So I never got to do pure and applied, which is a bit of a shame. Why do you feel wrong? I don't think you are. I think you just feel wrong. And so, because it didn't dawn on me that the college might have different rules, I assumed, same borough or whatever, that they'd have the same rules and apparently no, they didn't. And someone said to me after, well, why didn't you ask? And it was like, well, when you've been told the rules are this, you assume those are the rules, right? You don't wake up every day going, have all the rules of the world changed yet, mummy? It's... a 30 mile an hour limit, it's 30 mile an hour, and partly because there's a big fat sign on it, but should it change, you're surprised. It's not the other way round. You aren't surprised that it hasn't changed yet. Actually, it'd be easier to work downwards, wouldn't it? So let's slide you back over here. Take you 4 and the ever-growing bobbin here. Let's undo you and rewind some of you to make you stay more round. Like that. So we need 4 of you, like this. And you are too long because you're annoying. And you've grown again, and it's the same one because you're annoying. Does anyone remember from back in like the late 80s? Yeah, it must have been late 80s. Well, mid to late 80s. The Mysterious Cities of Gold and Phileas Fogg and 80 Days Around the World. there were cartoons. Does anyone else remember those? And moreover, do you remember Automan and Manimal? They were not cartoons. Yeah, you'd have to have really been there, I think. There were nothing untoward, but Mysterious Cities of Gold with Esteban, and he was on a... Do you remember Manimal and Automan, though, Nauticelt? Manimal, as you might not be too surprised from the title, was a man who could change into, I think it was a hawk, a panther, and something else. Anyway, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3. I think it was a hawk, a panther, and something else. Anyway, it was when TV first introduced the technology of the bubbling skin kind of effect, where they transform between 2 different things. And the guy who played it went on, he was in Falcon Crest, not that many people remember that either, but Falcon Crest, which was a shitty daytime bollocks thing. And he also did a brief stint as a doctor in Casualty. Don't ask me what his name was, I've forgotten. But he did do a brief stint as a doctor in Casualty. He's done quite a few things, but those were kind of the ones that I remember him from the most. And it was basically, he'd save the day by turning into some bloody animal, obviously. That was the whole point. Automan was my hero, right? Now, if anyone ever wondered how you could tell I was autistic, Automan was my hero. And I can tell you now that if you have never seen the film Electric Dreams, no, not that one, the other one, you would understand my life, right? Automan was, in effect, supposedly, a really dumb policeman, American, who had stayed late one night. Yeah, I don't remember Arabian Nights. Oh yeah, in Arabian Nights they could as well, yeah, I remember that. But Automan, he basically programmed himself a helper to help him solve crimes and get higher up on the police force. And somehow, the computer thing came alive. And for those who are old enough, not help, the guy who used to be the Green Cross Code guy seemed to be Automan himself, the computer-generated dude. Now, Automan, I think it was, right? Now, it certainly looked a lot like him. It certainly had the hair anyway, right? I know you know what I mean. But, moreover, so the general principle was that, crime would come along and the police force would be struggling to fix it. And this stupid American cop dude would call on his program, Automan. And Automan, a bit very 70s hair. Very early 80s, 70s, late 70s, early 80s hair. Very kind of early George Michael, you know, kind of crash helmet hair. Anyway, it was a bit like a hologram idea to look at. Was, you know, originally Automan kind of hologrammatically kind of appeared and spoke to him so he could have a conversation. Very early AI theory, right? But it turned out that he was actually tangible. And he then had a thing called Cursor, who would draw things like a car and a helicopter. Helicopter was Series 2, but car and a helicopter. But the car, of course, drove in a binary. So it could do 90 mile an hour and do a 90-degree bend, and the guy would slap against the window. Again, kind of the first time it really been done on TV as a joke like that. Although reused for years to come. I absolutely loved Automan. And it was really weird because, you know, you guys don't surprise me that you've never heard of it, right? But I was obsessed with it. Again, the autism showing through. I am obsessed with a computerized thing on TV. For those who do not know the story of Electric Dreams, Guy is trying to build a earthquake-proof brick. So buys a computer and has the IQ of a donut and manages to spill a drink on it. Computer comes to life and Edgar is born, right? Bear in mind, I've only actually watched it a couple of times, but I have been obsessed with it. And Miles, owner of computer, sets about trying to build an earthquake-proof brick and using software that obviously you just bought in the local store because it's not specialist equipment, of course, not at all. Leaves it running in his flat, and the girl upstairs is a girl called Madeline who... Well, I know what you mean. I've kind of done this. I've too have washed a couple of keyboards, and nothing happened for me either. So, usually it's a case of I need to buy a new keyboard. So, it didn't work out for me. It was slightly misleading. I will point that out. But Madeline plays first chair in the orchestra on a cello, and apparently her solo is the, I can't remember what the tune's called, but it goes da 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 da. Yeah, this is what the first chair in an orchestra plays. Oh, fuck off. Anyway, she's obviously, you know, practicing that, and Edgar downstairs hears her practicing. That was too many, I'm sure of it. But never mind. Yeah, that feels too many. Let's go back and do that again. So, cross, twist, cross, twist. Yeah, I'm sure I did more than that. Right. So, she then thinks that Miles is this great musician, because, of course, Edgar has a... It's called The Jewel. You can find it on YouTube. And she thinks that he's some form of great musician, for which, of course, he's not. Done it again. 1, 2. I need to count them more often. Right. So she then kind of, hey, I've always wanted to meet you. You're such a great musician. And he's kind of like, what? And basically, Edgar falls in love with Madeline. And the very end of the film, Edgar commits suicide. You know, such a cheery, happy film. Was it 2 years ago? I think it was. You know how like they. I mean, if you're not British, they don't. You might not know. Here in England, they do like. I can't remember who it is. It might be Marks and Spencers, but one of them has like a famous kind of wait for Christmas, see what music and what ad they're going to do. And they had someone singing Together in Electric Dreams while, young child plays with the snowman. And everyone goes, oh, it's a great advert. And I'm like, do you know what the song's about, right? Oh, well, because it doesn't scream self-deletion. So if you didn't know the film, you wouldn't know. But when you know that and then listen to it, it is much more obvious. And one of my friends was like, well, only you seem to have watched the film. So, no, most people won't be aware. They just think it's a great... Because at the very, very end, Edgar sends 40,000 volts down the phone line, like you do, right? I mean, hello, like you do. And broadcasts this tune to the world. And it is played on absolutely everything, and everyone's all bouncing around and rocking out to it. This is his farewell to the world, right? And so it's not actually supposed to be a happy event. It's actually supposed to be really quite miserable. And they've used it. They used it as their Christmas kind of theme tune for Happy Christmas, and it's kind of like. Okay, marketing didn't really research this, did they? They just heard a happy tune and went, love this tune, and slapped it on. And you're just coming undone. So yeah. But yeah, this is Automan again. Both of them are about computers that kind of come to life, and I identified with the computer. It is a bit, really, isn't it? Yeah. Oh well, whatever, But then, of course, that is the joy of taking stuff out of context, right? Is that you can hear it out of context and go, that's awesome. Yeah, no, it's not actually. No, it's not. Especially as the girl who was singing it, because it's not normally a girl who sings it, but the girl who was singing it in the Christmas ad, Jesus, she sounded like, she really was, she sounded worse off than Edgar, So, yeah, context is everything. Beware of the assumptions that you make. I can't believe it's Sunday already. fair enough. I could do with some more Coke actually, but there we go. Yeah. So. Time's it? 4:30. I'm going to have to beat that clock up. Tea is an awesome idea. Hence, you may have noticed, as I mentioned on my Amazon order there, I am ordering a teapot. But it's not just a teapot. It has a slogan on it that says Witch's Brew. Which I thought was rather nice. So hence, I'm buying it. Because it dawned on me, I don't actually have a teapot. I can drink an awful lot of tea, but I don't actually have a teapot. So now I will have a teapot to do a proper job when I'm really in the mood for a proper cup of tea. Because while tea bag in a cup is a decent enough cup of tea, it's not like instant coffee that makes you want to spit. When one has guests, one should make proper tea. Well, that's the thing. When you, especially if you live on your own, no one makes a pot of tea for one, right? It's just not really a thing. It's just not worth the effort. But when you have guests, well, that's maybe a little bit different. But as I say, I want to have one should the need arise, you know? Half a litre, right? I'm glad I'm not the only one who drinks their tea by the litre. I think I've got a 700 milliliter cup that holds well, kind of flasky cup thing. It's one of those like travel mug cylindrical things. But yeah, I got one of those, and I used to drink one an hour at work of tea. Part of the reason I don't drink so much tea now is because I kind of went a little overboard for many years. So come on then, what other strange childhood memories do you have other than things like Will-O-the-Wisp and Ivor the Engine, which of course were glorious? What other long forgotten memories do you have? What childhood things were you deprived of? I remember there being a TV programme on Saturday evenings, and I think it was called Ludwig, but I don't really remember what it was about. But I remember it being a bit more adulty. I just don't remember what it was about. Kickstart. Remember watching that. Now Get Out of That. Now there was a good series that died far too soon. Now Get Out of That was, well, kind of as it sounds, to be honest. They would take a team of people and to achieve going home kind of thing. Yeah, I can see that. Now Get Out of That was really, again, my kind of stuff, because they would have, you know, it was the traditional, here's a really long piece of pipe which you can't get into to touch the thing either end. How are you going to get it out without breaking the pipe, right? And they had lots of puzzles like that, and they had to solve the puzzles. A bit Annika Rice style, but without the shit. And so they'd be dumped like in a field, and then they'd have to go down, they'd get like a key, and the key would open a hut, and in the hut would be the next clue, and they kind of followed it on. I really enjoyed watching those. Yeah. Squirrels, funnily enough. Squirrels are good at that kind of stuff too. But it was a really fascinating program to watch, because obviously they'd be standing around talking about ideas and stuff, and you found yourselves doing the same at home. So, you know, me and my parents would be sitting there kind of going, well, no, that's not going to work because of this. And, well, you could do this, but, oh, you can't, you know, it'd be things like, well, you could pick the pipe up and slide it out, says Mum. Well, no, Mum, it's kind of fixed down, so you can't do that. Oh, that's shit. And you'd sit there and you'd have, like, an intellectual conversation about how to solve the puzzle. And I absolutely loved those. They must be available on YouTube or something. Hang on. Let's have a quick look. See if it's on YouTube. Hang on. Now Get Out of That TV show. Oh, God. Was it only 12 years ago? It was more than 12 fucking years ago. That must be a newer one. But it does look like some of them are on YouTube, by the way. He was something like that, but there was some bird with like huge triangular hair, crystal tips or something. I don't remember a lot about it either. You know how it can be. Yeah. I think they're all kind of like a bit like the Pink Panther used to be, in the sense that there was the Pink Panther bit, but then you had like almost like sub-programs within it. Or maybe it was just on at the same time and they alternated them or something. I don't know. You know how it is. I only vaguely remember. I only remember something about big hair. To be truly honest, all I can remember is something about triangular hair. You know. So the answer probably is yes. But it's also sometimes funny the bits you remember and the bits you don't. It is, which is why normally they, you know, the people who genuinely make them from scratch, you know, it's kind of, you put the loop together and form the scrunchie around it, not try and put an elastic band back into the tube that already exists. But yeah, beloved scrunchies are definitely a thing. I saw you get longer then. I watched you. Making it, of course, even more important that you fix it. Yeah, I know how that goes. Part of me says I should finish this triangle today. For I am not far away. I am far enough away, but I am not far away. The other half of me says, but we shall see. We shall see how it goes. For I am getting hungry. Wrong thing to do. That's what I want to do. You go there a minute. I'll use you in a minute. Now you can tell you one thing that I don't miss from the 80s and early 90s that didn't survive. Mr. Goddamn Blobby. If you're not British, Mr. Blobby probably hasn't got the same traumatising thought for you that it does for many of us. Mr. Blobby was a man in a polyurethane kind of suit thing that was pink with blobs on it, and basically he ran around going blobby blobby blobby, and frankly it was the, if you weren't on something it didn't work. And exactly, Mr. Ben was cool. Mr. Ben was friggin' awesome. He was kind of Batman, Superman, all put together. Again, for those who are not aware, Mr. Ben used to go to a shop and he'd go to like the tailors and he'd step into the changing room, he'd put on the clothes and become basically the costume. So if it was like a cowboy, yay! But Mr. Ben would then become whatever the costume had been. So if it was a sailor, he'd step out of the changing room onto a ship and have a short adventure as a sailor. It was kind of daft, but at the same time it was kind of clever because it was not stupid. Well, I mean, it is stupid in one way because, you know, doesn't happen. But it was kind of a good way of having someone have adventures. But he kind of always had a suit. When he started, he walked in with a suit. He was kind of a respected looking businessman type. Now, it was all a cartoon, right? But Mr. Ben was definitely a good thing. Similar in a way, Bag Puss, Finger Mouse, all of those kind of things. They were not, I mean, they were stupid, but they weren't ridiculous. Well, exactly, right? The man had class, right? Whereas if, you know, Mr. Blobby just needed a smack in the face, he was just highly irritating. And it was really nice that they'd managed to find a way of making children's programs that weren't terrible. Well, yeah. Admittedly, he never wore, you know, Madame Vistra's, you know, French, you know, fishnet stockings and heels or whatever. But, you know, he was, you know, he went in and he became all sorts of things, you know, a fireman, a policeman, a sailor, and, you know, he did all sorts of kind of stuff. And it was kind of interesting, but it was also kind of fun. Here Comes Bod was also slightly interesting. I don't really remember what we learned and what we did. I remember there was like Snap. There was the game of Snap built into it. So you'd have like, here comes Bod. And there was a game of Snap built in. I can't remember much more than that. Finger Mouse, much like Bag Puss, had... I do vaguely remember Pitkins. I also remember the Clangers, the Moomins. Not so much of the Moomins, but I remember the Clangers very much. But it was funny how there were like lowbrow children's programs and highbrow children's programs. And as we got older, it became, I mean, we had daft stuff, don't get me wrong. Clangers. It's hard, but the Clangers was a thing. And yet we laugh at Teletubbies and how stupid it is. It's no more stupid than the Clangers. But we had kind of almost highbrow children's programs with things like Bagpuss, you know, Basil Fox, Boom Boom, Rainbow, that was not a highbrow. Play School was a bit more highbrow. But we had a load of programs that taught us stuff in a more adult way. Whereas, I remember a few years ago, Trev, it was quite a few years ago now, but I remember Trev telling me of a cartoon where there were two blobs that kind of run around and kind of bleep, bloop, and that's it. And there's kind of no story, no moral, no nothing, other than it's these two blobs running around for 5 minutes and then it's over, and you're kind of going, okay, I guess. Yeah, and I'm not saying the life we had as children was perfect. Far from it. But at the same time, we had a lot of fun. And our programs, why don't you? The programs we watched were entertaining, but usually on some level educational. An awful lot of the educational portion has kind of worn off. Now, don't get me wrong, Crackerjack was very, some of them were very loosely educational. But again, even with Crackerjack, you had the stupid cabbage thing, where if you got the answer wrong, you had to carry a cabbage, and the idea was whoever was holding the most at the end of it, and it's very difficult to hold too many cabbages, right? But you had to answer questions. You had Johnny Bull, think of a number. Those were always very kind of highbrow, really. But at the same time, they played with it. They didn't just, here is how to do the multiplication table. Yeah, they managed to play with things in a way that made it interesting to children and almost distracted them from learning. Whereas it really feels like an awful lot of the kids' programs you say now, I mean, there's always been cartoons for the sake of cartoons. Tom and Jerry, although there was some moralistic-y kind of stuff in Tom and Jerry. But, Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote and all that kind of stuff. But it was very rare in our day that you had something like Pokemon, where, like, what looks like a 10-year-old boy goes off travelling the world on his own, catching Pokemon into balls. And that would have his parents' blessing on that. I don't know, it just always struck me that we had better children's programs, that even the ones that were a bit shit weren't as shit as the ones that you get today. That today's programs lack an awful lot of the kind of, not the moral high ground, but the educational factor of programs that we used to watch. Now, I'm not saying that everything we watched was all above board and, intellectual nuggets of wisdom that, you've lived by forevermore. But I do think that we certainly paid a lot more attention to them than more modern children seem to do. And that we remember a lot more of the story or the characters in it. Maybe I'm wrong, but well, yeah, I mean, if you think back in the summer holidays, you'd have like Huckleberry Finn, Littlest Hobo. Oh God, I love that Littlest Hobo. But again, they were all about morals, really. But you had Huckleberry Finn, and you had, as I say, I'm trying to think, there was a couple more. And Gentle Ben, dear God. Bean! Sorry. Gentle Bean. Lassie. Champion the Wonder Horse. They were good, clean, honest, wholesome programs. And they were programs that your parents could watch without, wanting to pitch themselves off the edge or something. It was... Whereas everything today feels much more... flashy colours, flashy lights, flashy music, just to kind of keep them entertained and looking at the screen. It doesn't seem to be beneficial on even the remotest of levels. Well, and that's the thing, is sometimes you look back on them and you think, I wonder why they died, because, it's not like they got cancelled for being rude or inappropriate. I mean, some of them were, but most times it was not about inappropriate. It was not, Gentle Ben. There used to be, Naught Count might remember this one, the BBC on a Friday afternoon, again in the later 80s, started running a children's film on Fridays. Hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the film was always... It was a proper film. I will point out the last one they played was inappropriate, which is why it stopped. I do know why that one stopped. For I watched the film. But it was... They were, wartime stories. They were, they were often set in foreign lands from the UK, but that it was a vaguely moralistic-y kind of film. There were always children in it, usually. Well, in fact, pretty much I don't remember one that didn't have a level of children in it, because obviously it was pitched at a children audience. But that they were, the films were educational, but were films. So they were entertaining, and as a whole, you forgot you were learning while you were watching. And they ran those for quite a while. I can tell you the last film they showed was Taps. If you've ever seen Taps, you'll understand why they didn't get to continue. Because even I was kind of a bit... That seems a bit harsh for, 5 o'clock on a Friday. Because it held basically I think it was 4 till 5 on a Friday slot. It was, Friday was, we can't be asked to do any actual programmes today. Here's a film. But it was, most of the films were sensibly child appropriate films. Taps, not so much. I mean, they could have made it more child appropriate by cutting out the final scene. That would have made it a lot more child appropriate, but they didn't. Well, it's not quite the final scene, but towards the end. where they haul up in their rooms and the parents come down the road with tanks and basically blow up the children. So it's not too surprisingly that didn't get to continue. Possibly seen as a little traumatic to 5-6-year-olds that might have been watching. Because one of the kids who was about to go to his parents and say he was sorry, he didn't mean standing up against everything and rebelling, got, I think, mass machine gunned or something, and it was, and visibly on TV. So as I said, not very child appropriate, which of course is why I think it's rated 18 normally. I don't know quite how that one slipped through the cracks, but that saw the end. But it was a particular manufacturer of films. It was a series of films, and I really used to look forward to those films, because it's not like it was the Harry Potter series or whatever. It wasn't a series of films in that extent, in that you saw, the life of a character grow over the weeks. It was completely unrelated stuff, but I just always used to look forward to it. Another thing I used to look forward to an awful lot, Rent-A-Ghost. God, I loved Rent-A-Ghost. That was daftness, but again, there was a level of morals in it. Yes, Tesco's, I know my Tesco's order is coming tomorrow, for I placed it. Stupid people. Have you forgotten anything? Probably. Do you think that your random text message today is really going to make me suddenly remember? No, I'll remember once it's too late, after the order closes tonight. Duh. I also think one of the sad parts about our childhood, Naughty Cat, is that many of the programmes that we enjoyed, for the programmes were good, were run by people who were not so good. Cough, Jim will fix it. Cough, the one where it's a knockout, Rolf Harris cartoon time, the programmes were good. The people, maybe not. In some of them, maybe not so much, maybe. But someone recently brought up something that made me think about it, which was, if you have read Good Omens, you all know what height of perfection that book is. I challenge you not to enjoy the book Good Omens. Now, they talked about making a film about it for decades. Literally, it was decades. The book, I think, It is a very fantastic book. So they talked about pretty much from like a year after the book came out that people wanted to make the film. And every one of us who'd read the book were like, oh no, you'll spoil it. You'll spoil it. Now, when they finally got round to making a series of the book, I was very reluctant to watch it because I was not convinced they could do good justice to Good Omens in a TV series. Even with today's special effects and all of that kind of shit. Now, the first series did deviate from the book quite a bit. But at the same time, it did have many of the characteristics. It wasn't as funny, but it was pretty damn good. And using David Tennant and Martin Sheen was great. Absolutely support that. They make really good characters. Some of the other choices, a bit on the fence. I'm not against them, but I'm not exactly, cheering them on. Then they made Series 2, which was supposedly the book that Pratchett and Neil Gaiman put together but never actually got round to. You're telling me in the best part of 30 years they never got round to it. And mysteriously, the instant Terry Pratchett dies, it comes to fruition. But I can't say I loved Series 2. I didn't hate Series 2. I just didn't love it. They are now talking of a one-off episode to finish all the loose ends. Which arguably means Armageddon must happen, surely, right? I do love how Tennant and Martin Sheen have really embodied both as Raphael and Crowley. I really do love how they've absolutely gone for that. And I think they both must have read the book. It's not just, instructions on a piece of paper. That it really does feel like they have embodied the premise of the book. But I am a little nervous as to where this kind of final episode thing is going to go. Because, the series was good. It wasn't as good as the book, but it was good. But, some things just... It's like everything. Just because one is successful doesn't mean we need more of them. If you've done a really cracking job, you've told the story, we're done now, Can we not do the Star Wars thing and drag it out into 9,000 different films, most of which are a bit sucky? Can we not do the kind of Harry Potter and all the Klingon shit? Can we not do who are the other lot? It used to be always joked about Rambo 2026. Police Academy 9002, there are films that you can make one or two of, and the first one's cracking. The second one maybe finishes off where the first one started. Don't need more than that. Many of them, you do not need more than that. Triple X, the first one was great. Second one, third one, he wasn't even in it. Fast and Furious, he was in the first couple, not in a big bunch of them. It's kind of, you've got to be careful how you handle it, because it can go terribly wrong. It can go absolutely terribly wrong. And too many of them do sequels for the sake of it. I mean, to be honest, even the recent Alien films fall into that category. Prometheus and all the rest of it. You know, it's an unnecessary dragging out of a story that was kind of done, and was done well to start with. And the other thing is of all the books in the world, of all of the stories that could be told, you couldn't find a new one. How many times have we got to remake Spider-Man? Because even the Marvel stuff. Now, I'm a real Marvel fan. The films and all the rest of it, I have genuinely enjoyed most of them. Thor Love and Thunder, not so much. But, you know, I loved the series about Loki. That went really, really well. Gave Loki a really good end. I kind of liked that. But there are just films you don't need to make 68 of. Yeah. And that's the thing. I was kind of the same. I was really, really in it till the end of Endgame. And then it's a bit like the X-Men and the how many backstories can Wolverine have? How many times can you really rewrite his history? Now, I do know that obviously the whole X-Men thing, you know, the bringing back of Professor X is supposed to signify this is a parallel universe and not the same as the first one. But you know what? It just strikes as dragging out something that made you money. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't. It was the same with remaking Batman and remaking Spider-Man. You know, I get it, but at the same time, you're just rehashing something because it made you a lot of money last time, and you want to see if you can rehash it and make the same again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How about you don't? How about you find a new story? I mean, even Star Trek's suffering with that now because, you know, they remade the original kind of Star Trek but changed it. And I'm not going to say it's a bad film. The first remake of Star Trek was not a bad film. The second remake of Star Trek was not a bad film, not a great Star Trek film. The third one, if they didn't call him Captain Kirk and you didn't have Spock and Scotty, you wouldn't have known it was a bloody Star Trek film. It was kind of shit. And so I do think that, you know, like a lot of these things, I get, you know, because like they've done, they made Enterprise for Star Trek, and it was a bit of a flop, so they stopped. So now they're making another start and go of... Ooh, thank you for the follow. You know, they've made the new Star Trek thing, and again, there is a bit of you that kind of goes, well, how many times can you boldly go where no man has boldly gone before, right? The answer is a lot. But, at the same time, many of the stories are stories you've already seen, just with different people in it. And when that comes down to be the case, that's a really good time not to. You know, now's the time to hang the hat and go, we've done this now. We're done. And I know that there are an awful lot of Trekkies and Star Wars fans and Harry Potter fans and the problem is they will buy anything. It doesn't mean it's any good. I mean, I am the girl who goes to bed, 9 times out of 10, listening to Harry Potter. But it's the same books I'm listening to. I don't need 20,000 more, right? And it's... I don't know. I just can't help but think that we don't help ourselves in that when they remake the remake of the remake of the reimagined of the remake, we need to say to them, I don't care. I've seen the story. I know the story. It's like, for example, if you saw the original Total Recall with Arnie in it, and then they made a new one, and in the original Arnie one, it was never clear if the story you were watching was him imagining his holiday or it was real. Because that was the whole point of the film. The only certainty happened up to the point where we went to Total Recall and got the memory added. There was nothing afterwards that ever proved if it was real or not. Yet, in the new one, there is no doubt. There is no doubt which way the book went. The coin flipped, right? But it takes away the magic by taking away that guesswork. Plus, they reused most of the names of everything, but set it on Earth, which, of course, it was never set on Earth, and changed the whole story plot, but didn't change the plot at the same time. So that, I mean, in the new one, sorry for the spoiler, but they go on due to some pollution stroke, this half destruction of the world, you can only really be on 2 land masses. So to go to work, you plummet through the centre of the Earth. Well, that's never going to work. And pop out the other side, And they have, like, phones embedded in their arms. And I mean, I know it's supposed to be set in the future, and obviously what we have today and what we thought we'd have back then is very different. But you still could have made it a little bit more... in keeping with the original story. And this is the problem I see we have with so many films these days, is that they remake it for the sake of remaking it to make a more politically correct one, or just because they know they would get a load of money for it. Ghostbusters. And sometimes it doesn't need doing. Sometimes the story was fine the first time round. It's funny how they never picked the ones that were box office flops to remake, is it? They only ever make the ones that made multi-millions. I mean, how many more bloody Jurassic Parks can you drag out of that? Now, it's not that the films are bad films, but we've kind of done it. Can we have a news story? With all the big books that have been written in the world, really, you can't find a new story to use? Can we at least try? So yeah, Liz the Grouch would like to see slight improvement on these areas, personally. I wouldn't mind if they took the ones that weren't great box office that were, were box office misses. Not that they were a bad film per se, that they just didn't do that well. Wrong time, wrong cast, whatever. And remade those. If they remade films that kind of didn't succeed the first time round, I'd understand it. But remaking stuff that we know we loved the way it was, we had no problem with it, you don't need to, Yes. Absolutely. It is... I don't think... I mean, Trev touched on this one. Well, Trev often quotes, and forgive me on this one, so I do wish to utter a warning that the following may feel slightly offensive to some, but Trev occasionally summarises it in that you don't need a black one-armed lesbian in everything. And he's got a point. If you think of Armageddon, where they take a bunch of roughnecks and they go up and have to blow up a big, kind of meteor in space, you are not going to send up a bunch of people who are offended by, having to get up in the morning, or you're not going to have people who have serious mental breakdowns and going up there and doing it. You have to have people who have a very practical, strong mind. Now, were they the ideal people? Of course not, but they touch on that in the film. If you take, you don't generally have female oil workers. So you can't replace them, for example, with an all-female crew to make it right on for the female kind, right? If you had a film about lumberjacking, this is not a female sport. Formula One. There is yet to be a female Formula One driver in the main event. Now, arguably, I would like to argue that there is no particular reason why they can't be, but the men have always been better at it, so the men have always won out the positions, right? And that's the thing. There are times and ways you can build in an element of neurospicy, of disability, of minority, of all of these things. There can be all of that. But the moment you start forcing it in there, it kind of goes a little bit south. As an example, you may know that in the Harry Potter books, no one is given a accent. No one is said to be a particular colour. No one is said to be of a particular religion. Now, the Weasleys being carrot tops does kind of strongly suggest that they are white. And exactly that. You can have some neurospicy. You can have some disability. You can have... But as you say, the moment you make every single character special, well, they ain't so special no more. And I know that when Jodie Whittaker took over as Doctor Who and her 4 companions, I struggled with that a bit for that very reason. In that there was almost no one normal on the show. Now, the one person who can pull off being a little bit spicy and interesting is definitely the Doctor. I mean, you don't get to be 1,000 years old without collecting a few neuroses, right? And I know that Shooty Katra, arguably, has surfaced some of these. But while it's an in-your-face kind of way, it's not in many others. It's not really mentioned. And so that way does make it acceptable. Because if we think about it, right? There always used to be the meme, you know if you've met your vegetarian because they told you, right? Now, being vegetarian is neither good nor bad. I mean, it is your choice. I do agree that animals should not be tortured. I do agree. But at the same time, I am not going to live on frigging potatoes. I need other food. And humankind was basically designed to eat a bit of both. So, you know, I'm going to stick with my burgers. But I am not offended by those who feel that this is cruel. And I do agree that many of the aspects of some of it is really not as humane as we like to make out. But it's still my choice as to what I do. And when you have a character in a show that kind of the first thing almost the first thing it says every week is, "Oh, well, I'm special." You are not normalising it. You are forcing it upon people. And it gets boring and you get anti it because it's constantly in your face. Which is the reason, of course, people always used to joke about the vegans. Is no one actually cared whether they were vegan or not. No one cared. No one gave an absolute shit. There wasn't one shit found anywhere to give. But because you kept harping on about it, because you would never shut up about it. As the meme says, you'll know if you met one because within 10 seconds I'll have told you. When you have got to that, and well, it was funny because it was kind of true. It is very rare that you met a vegan who didn't tell you. These days, far more common, thankfully, and hence the meme has somewhat died out. But as a good example, it's how you do yourself a disservice. If you go round forcing your view on everybody else, now, these days, it is not an unrealistic statement to say that there is, in any given group, some neurospicy something special going on. Because there are so many people that fall into one of many categories. But surely normalising it is just including them and going about normal. That's inclusiveness. The moment you 50,000 things about how great it is and how, how inclusive everybody is. And, well, you're not really being inclusive if it's forced, right? One of the things that I struggle with at work, and obviously I put my job at risk in a way by mentioning it, one of the things I struggle with is the mandatory training on the alphabet scenario. What has your sexual orientation got to do with my place of work? I don't care what you do at home. I don't care who, what or why you do at home. If you try and make me do what you do, maybe I'll have an opinion on that. But I don't care otherwise. I don't think anyone at work's an arse because they're green, purple, pink, they've got green hair. No, you're an arse because you did an arsey thing. I don't care what you believe in. It's not relevant at work. So why now do we all have to do quite a lot of mandatory training to cover it? Well, it shouldn't be relevant. And anyone who can't leave it at the door should be taken to HR for not leaving it at the door. You shouldn't need training to not be, if you're discriminating, period, right? And so I've always struggled with it because, those of us of my age were always told, don't bring your problems to work. Well, if I've got to go on 12 hours a year of mandatory training about it, someone brought those problems to work. Someone, it's not that I don't want people to feel comfortable, but at the same time, never before for religion, for colour, have we ever had to have that much mandatory training to say, treat them like everybody else. I mean, seriously, why do we need that much training on it? And if we do need that much training, something is really wrong, So yeah, I'm glad you feel that way, Flusenby. I really am, because it is a really difficult and sensitive subject. But at the same time, you're not alone. I have a lovely trans friend. She is a younger person, much younger person than me. I love her with all my heart, and she finds an awful lot of the shenanigans that goes on stupid, because it paints everyone in the same poor light. And of course, as we all know, it's a minority. It is the minority spoiling it for everybody else. And yeah, it is sad that, don't mind Bert, he's wearing a dress today. Yeah, whatever. I don't care what he's wearing. I really don't. It's none of my business what he wears to work. If as long as he's, as long as I don't have to see anything that I, illegally don't want to see, he's got some clothes on, I really don't care. I mean, if you look a bit stupid, I might want to laugh, but, where I work, it is not uncommon to see people in the height of snow walking around in Hawaiian shorts and flip-flops. And I agree with that. I do definitely agree with that. It shouldn't matter whether your partner's male, female, or a goat. I mean, preferably not animals, but, as long as you keep it to yourself, I really don't care. So, you got a partner, okay, what did you get up to? Great. If I misgender your partner, correct me, I'll apologise and we'll move on. Oh, we're thinking of adopting. Oh, that's great. Whatever, right? The problem is you almost can't be happy for people these days. Now, One of the other things that kind of irks me, and I'll start with example A and move to the more contentious example B. Back in the day, boyfriend of mine worked for Odd Bins, who are a alcohol reseller in the UK, right? If you smoked, you were entitled to a 5-minute fag break every hour. If you were not a smoker, you were not entitled to the break. Now, these 5-minute breaks were on top of their statutory legally required breaks. So, every smoker got to work 55 minutes of the hour, whereas everybody else had to do 60. I also would like to apply this to children. Why is it that just because little Johnny's got an open evening, or little Johnny's sick, or little Johnny's, oh, well, I'm working from home except for the fact that I'm actually going to be watching Frozen all morning. Well, then you ain't working, love. Take the day off. Now, I do appreciate, and I'm, because I'm not stupid, that the number of days holiday that the average child gets off from school does never match the holidays that a parent will get. Absolutely not. Children get, on average, I think it's 13 to 15 weeks a year, and the most you can ever expect to get from a UK employer is usually about 30 days. So 6 working weeks. Well, so either you book some holiday off and nothing else the rest of the year, but of course come Christmas, oh, they need first dibs. And Easter, oh, well, they need first dibs. And the summer, oh, well, they need first dibs. Well, some of us chose wisely not to have children. Why does that mean I instantly can't have Christmas off? Why does that instantly mean I can't have, that week holiday because it turns out it's bloody half term or something, right? Why does the sun revolve around the fact that they have a child? Well, they chose to do that. I chose not to. I have as much right to book my day off. But I've seen it quite a few times that the people who have children, oh, well, little Jimmy's got a cold, and then they're not seen for the rest of the week. Or, it's half term, I'll be working late, so they come in at 1 and, kind of at 11 and leave at 1 and call that a day's work, while the rest of us have to do a whole day. They get primary dibs on the holidays, they get, now, it's not that I, want their children to suffer, I don't. But that's part of the decision of having the child, is that you should be prepared to have plans that, for my parents didn't take time off to be with me. Now, admittedly, my parents were weird, but, it is, you hear of these things, and children whose summer holidays is so action-packed, I'm surprised, they almost come back to school for a rest. It's... Equality has to work both ways. And, if you're going to get extra time off for your children, why can't I have extra time should something happen to one of my dogs? They mean as much to me. Who are you to decide that a child is more important than my kid? I'm not saying they're not, but you know what I mean, is that I have just as much right to want to be with my family, so, I find it difficult, because like you've said, there are people who have severe issues with the non-average relationship. So if it's not a heterosexual male and female relationship, there's going to be someone who's got a problem with it. Well, why? Why does it bother them? Unless you're making moves on them, Why does it bother them? Because that's always been the bit that struck me is, and this is why I never understood why it came into the workplace. Because unless you're, having it off on the extra, on the photocopier machine, what exactly is the problem? Why does it matter who or what someone is doing in their spare time? Why can't you just be happy for them? They probably are. Because, of course, that's the other issue. Oh, we can't just send the person with the problem on the training course. You've all got to go. Why? We weren't the ones with the problem. If I stole something, you don't put the whole family in court, right? You put me in court. So why would you do the same at work? If Billy is really prejudiced, why is the entire department of, say, 60 people now going on a course because they don't want to single out Billy, who is the problem? Surely you tell Billy he is the problem and give him a chance to stay as long as he attends this mandatory training and is seen to be better, or you tell him to bugger off and fire him for being a, prejudiced git. It's... I've never I don't think it's something. I mean, I do see both sides, right? I do very much understand that, everyone has a right to feel treated fairly and not prejudiced against and all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it can be seen to be going a bit too far. Now, obviously, the winning team, i.e. the ones with the most concessions. Sorry, I was listening to a noise and it's the birds, but it sounded like hounds. Because whoever's got the most concession feels like that they've won, for example, and that, the others are trying to take away their stuff. Well, that's not necessarily true, There shouldn't be about winning. It should be about being fair. And in the subject of being fair, no one wins, no one loses. Now, we all know that that's very difficult to achieve. But, as you've said, chances are it is the people who... There are people who are out because how dare you want to take away my additional privilege? Well, I mean, for example, where I used to work, there was the coloured people's thing, there was the LGBTQ thing, there was the veterans thing, there's the women's thing. Now, where's the white male thing? Now, obviously, white male privilege is potentially a thing, especially where I work, because it's in engineering and, well, male engineers are the norm. But if you're going to have a group for literally everything, well, that's... Yeah, but when you send, like 3,000 people on a training course because one dude mispronounced somebody, it's gone a bit far, right? And as I said, if little Johnny is a prejudiced git, then send Johnny on a course. Take Johnny aside and explain to him how wrong he is. But you see, this is the problem. We all have to go every year on sexual harassment training. We all have to go on, even as a home worker, I've had to do in the office hazard trips and reporting problems training, and where it asks you what the magic number is to dial for a problem. Well, dial it all I like at flicking home. I'm not in the office. It's an extension number. It's not a genuine landline phone number. It's not a mobile number. It's a 4-digit extension code. It's not going to do me no good here. But I have to know that. And you're like, well, how would I know it? It's on the phone at work. And I haven't seen one for 5 years. Thankfully, I remember it. But that's not the point. right? I'm never going to need it because I'm never there. My job is here. Safety lifting. Well, the only shit I lift at home is my own stuff, and don't you dare tell me what I can and cannot lift in my own house. And good luck reinforcing that. I do agree that companies should lay bare their rulings on what they find acceptable and what they don't. So as part of your induction, you should have, they should tell you that, as an employee, we will not let you lift more than this. We will not we will not tolerate this kind of behavior, that kind of behavior, this kind of behavior. We will not, and they will lay out some of those rules. If those rules have to change, then you make a public statement internally, but you make a, global statement. We have had to change the following rules. These are the new rules. Because times changed, and, I've been there in my company 20 years. Things have changed. Well, that's fine. So tell us what changed. Again, invite people to volunteer for, if you are interested to learn more. Once so many of you have said that you're interested, we will put a workshop together for you, and you can have, we will do talk on it, discussion on it, training on it, whatever, right? If it's just going to be 3 of you, we'll grab a coffee and we'll sit down and talk about it. I get all of that. But when you mandate that 3,000-4,000 people have to go on a mandatory training course because one person might, not even necessarily is or have a problem. As I say, I do think that there should be an element of, like when you go to school, do not run in the corridors. One of the first things you hear, do not run in the corridors. Okay, so that's a bad thing. And if you get caught running in the corridor, you get detention. It's how it should work. The general rules that you were expected to be made by are made clear to you at the beginning. If they change, they will tell you, job's good. If you are proving to be a rule breaker, then, training / correction may be in order. And it's not that I don't want people to feel protected by the company. I totally feel they should be. I will point out that at no point has anyone protected me, but that's not the point, right? I just think that we have... you can go too far, and in going too far, like I said, if you want to be accepted and treated like everybody else, then, you're not being treated like everybody else if everyone else has to go on a 3-hour workshop just to make sure that you feel that they're not going to say something. Now, I do agree that you should be able to feel that they are not going to deliberately say something, but they shouldn't need a 3-hour workshop every year to remind them, They are grown individuals. They need to take a bit of responsibility and apologise if they get it wrong. In a way, it's worse here on the internet because, for example, some of the names that people can have do not have any hint of gender whatsoever. And sometimes you get the impression that they're male or female, and you're wrong. So say sorry if you get it wrong. I've done it to Sugar Bear a couple of times. Poor old Sugar Bear. But it's not that I've got a problem with their gender. I've just got it wrong. So I say sorry. And they've never had a problem, as far as I know. Yeah. They've always accepted it. People make mistakes, and mistakes are inevitable to an extent. But it is the deliberate kind of getting it wrong. It is the prejudice that goes along with it. And if they see that, well then that's what they need to correct. They don't necessarily need to explain to people who already get it to get it, because they already did. I remember one year when they first did some of the sexual harassment training that we do today, because they changed it over the years, obviously. One of the things was that you must not touch your co-worker, and we kind of went, well, surely it's you mustn't touch them without their permission. No, you may, because they may have to feel pressured to agree to it. You mustn't. Dude, we've got people who've known each other for 30 to 40 years. They're like family. You know, if one of them's upset, there's a hug, right? It's a hug. There's no gropey, feely, touchy, weirdy bit about it. It is a hug in the genuine, wholesome sense that hugs were intended. Oh no, you can't do that. But they're my friends. I've known some of these people longer than my family. It's can we correct that? And but yeah, there is this kind of thing, or it's the you can't do or say anything that may be construed by somebody else as a problem. Well, surely whether it's a problem or not is down to between the two people. I mean, yes. It does, but you see, here's one of the things, Fleece and V, right? This is a very controversial thing, and I know that it could be very upsetting. If, when you're pregnant, you do not know the gender of baby yet, it is not necessarily wrong to say it will be. It being the gender. Now, if we say it about person, oh dear God, you'll never hear the end of that. But why is it so bad? It is a generic, genderless, singular item. It is a bobbin. It is a pair of snippers. Now, in German, French and many other languages, many of these words have genders. Who decided what gender those items were? How do you know they're not offended by being called a gender when they're not? This is where my neurospicy goes. So, if you are unsure, there is they. Now, obviously, if I'm talking to you about my ex-husband, they do this, they do that. Or I can say, he does this, he can does that. They is very easily put into the sentence. But if I want to give him something, them does not fit in quite as easily. Now, occasionally you do. It feels perfectly normal to go, oh, yeah. I'm going to give him that. Yeah. Not a problem. Now, saying they is a perfectly good thing, but it's also changing something that's been inground into people for many years. And while it is a gendered language, because people do say he, she a lot, he will come round later, I'm going with him to whatever, right? It doesn't make it right, especially when said person is not identifying as that gender. But at the same time, usually you are talking about someone you know in that kind of context. Therefore, you'd know what they prefer to be referred to as. Now, what I would argue, and it's very much personal opinion, yeah, you see, that's what I mean. Who decided that a girl is neutral, but a vase is female? I mean, how did that come out? of all the neutral things, surely a vase is neutral. And believe me, this was half my problems with learning another language, was that it's not that I can't learn another language. It's what I can't understand is how you all work out what gender something's going to be. Because, well, it doesn't have a gender. It's a thing. My car is a car. It's not a male or a female. It is a car. And of course, we don't really... we only have he, she and it in English. We have they for plural and for singular. Well, it should be. I mean, it's fucking car. Although, nearly every person assigns a gender to their car over here. That's the weirdy bit. Most men's cars are female. My car is absolutely male. It is. But that's the thing. It's a coincidence. And yet, why did we assign genders to words? Assigning gender to mother, father, sister, brother, daughter, woman, man, husband, fiance, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner. Yeah, okay. Because they can have gender, because, well, they do. Clothes even. Male clothes and women's clothes. Clothes can have a gender. But my bobbins don't. My lamp doesn't. My TV doesn't. My cup doesn't. My pen doesn't. Nothing else does. Animals have a gender. I mean, my German's pretty shit, to be honest. I mean, I did study it for a couple of years, but it's pretty shit. Now, the one thing I will say about most Germans is that they are fairly forgiving in that if you kind of like D apostrophe and then insert item name and you kind of miss the der, die, das kind of thing and you just kind of go duh, they let you off. So you can kind of skip memorising all of... Because as a foreigner, am I supposed to know what gender you've assigned a vase? I mean, it's interesting that it's female. Because isn't flask or flagon male? Yeah, it's not a D flug, it's a der flug, I thought, which makes it he. It's not it might be das, I don't know. It's been the best part of nearly 40 years since I did that shit, so, my brain is somewhat rusty. But, really, does it matter? Why does it matter that they've got genders? Why have they got genders? As I say, people have genders, items don't, so stop adding one. Hence we have the and it. Because of course der, die and das are usually put in for instead of that, the, and kind of aspects of the British language. Now bear in mind I am not a grammatical guru. I do not know all the names for all these fancy words, and I know 1,000 people around the world are screaming that they do. My ex-husband is one of them, for he is grammar king. But as you say, it's common in nearly every language other than English that objects have a gender. But they don't have a gender. Of all the things in the universe, they do not have genders. They are things. They are its. So why don't we call them that? Why do we assign a gender to it? Just to make life worse, because, my car is male. Anyone who's driven my car will tell you my car is male. I don't know why, but my car is male. No, not all my cars have been male. Some of them have been female. But this one is absolutely male. It has a screaming male personality. Now, how do inanimate items have personalities? Well, they do. My very first car was also male. He was called Murdoch, for he was a great explorer. Because he went anywhere on anything, and frankly, how that car ran was a living miracle. It had no oil in it, no air pressure in the tyres, and pretty much no water. But it never overheated, and it never broke down. It was a freaking miracle, that car. But Murdoch and I went everywhere. Mind you, petrol prices were a little bit more affordable back then and all. If I tell you had change from 40p, you'll give you an idea. It's about £2 now. So it is. It's one of those things, is that you see, that's the problem that it introduces. Now, for example, a nurse, 9 times out of 10, people will instantly picture a woman. They're not. There are many great male nurses. But, same with cat. Everyone assumes she is the cat's mother and a dog is male. Well, they're not. They've all got both. Trev, of course, believes that goats are male sheep. Where does goat's milk come from, Trev? I don't want to live in your world. But people do have some prejudices in the sense of, if you say nurse, 99 times out of 100, they are now picturing a woman in a little blue dress. Yeah. And in some ways, having a gendered language really does create that problem. Because everything over here, I have a pen, it is blue. I do not say I have a pen, he is blue or she is blue. I have a pen, it is blue. It's genderless. And from that point of view, we're on a winner. But then... well, exactly that. And as I say, as British people, we've kind of got that one. We're at one, and we get a +1 on that one, because unless it... yeah, you're in Wales, so it's probably a blue pen. But whether your pen's black, green, white, pink, purple, whatever... It is still a colour. It is not he is a colour or she is a colour. Now, as I mentioned, most people put a gender on their car, and 9 times out of 10 it's female. But we don't do gendered words. But if people then say my car, oh, she's doing good today, you should get a bit of a funny look, because your car's a lump of metal, dude. What makes it female? What makes it male? But driving my car, it's not. It doesn't feel feminine at all. It's a Mini. You'd think it was a girly car, but it's not. My car does not want to be girly. It hates that idea. I think that's why it broke down last year, is because I think someone called it a female. But why is it that we've backed ourselves into a problem because we've let language be gendered? The only things that should have... exactly. Sometimes you do really strongly get a perception of gender from an item, but it is not all vases are female, all cars are female, all spanners are male, right? Whatever, right? An item is kind of what sense you get when it... now, not all items make you think of a gender. So, my lump of beeswax here, no gender at all. My computer's called Karen. Oh, naughty cow. Okay, someone call the shrink. But that's exactly it. we should be able to laugh about that. But someone somewhere out there would be absolutely ripped apart by that. And not in a good way, right? Not in the laughing so much, has now needs to clean up on aisle 3. Yeah, but thing is we've lost the ability to make jokes about things now. There is so little that you can make jokes about without offending someone now. The joke, a man walks into a bowl. Why wasn't it a girl? Well, because it was a joke. It doesn't really matter. I love that one, Naughty Girl. That's fucking class. I want to. Next time I'm in human-led kind of near a spicy kind of training. I'm so gonna bring that up. I'm so gonna bring that up. In fact, I may have to text one of my co-workers. I have a co-worker who is, unfortunately slightly prejudiced, but they will laugh their bits off at that one. Because it's very true. It is true. But it's true in all the right senses of the world, right? But in a workplace, I do wish that so many more of the aspects of problems were kept as out of work problems, and that we didn't bring them in to be everybody else's problem. And if I woke up tomorrow and decided that my name's going to be Bert and that I'm going to be a bloke forevermore, I mean, I'm sitting here in men's clothing, it's not that much of a stretch. But, so I'm going to be Bert from here on out, right? Who's affected by that? I don't have a partner. I don't have even remotely interested parties. Mainly because I don't go out. Actually, that's not true. Even if I do go out, I still don't have interested parties. And that's fine by me, because I'm also on these. I'm actually also part of the Alphabet Brigade, because I don't care. I am not interested. Is my gender is not interested. I have one, apparently. It is, but I'm not offended. I mean, I do laugh when people. I get letters addressed to Mr. Liz Kimber, because it was Queen Elizabeth. No, I mean, I know, yes, Queen, but no, Queen Elizabeth, not King Elizabeth. Really is it that hard to tell, right? So I do laugh when I get Mr. Kimber. But to be honest, if someone said him, I mean, I used to be quite offended as a kid, because it was even true when I was a kid. I remember someone asking my dad to move his son out of the way. I think I was wearing a dress. I don't wear dresses anymore, but I think I was wearing a skirt or a dress, and I remember kind of going, "Why did he think I was a boy, Daddy?" But I wasn't actually offended. I was just like, "Why would he think I'm a boy?" The answer is because I had a boy's haircut, and I was with my dad. Is probably the short answer. The world is kind of really screwed up, and sometimes I want to get off the carousel, It's I feel for people who have problems. I always have done. I've always stood up. I do feel sorry for problem, and I will stand up for people. If I see someone being browbeaten down, I don't care if it's not my business. If they are looking scared, upset, and someone's having a go, I'll stand up for you. I don't care what it's about. If you are being browbeaten and it is an unrealistic subject. So I remember I was at the checkout once, and a woman came up to the person who was serving me, who was quite a young person, and started having a go about, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. And I said, excuse me, and you shouldn't be doing that in front of a customer. How moralistically bad are you that you as a manager would disgrace your employee in front of all the customers? Have you got no standards? And you could see this poor kid eyes the size of dinner plates as I'm having a go at the manager. And I said, so if you want to have an argument, pick one on me, because I'm up for that. Don't pick on your staff in public. That's just rude. And they all went off in a huff. And the poor kids went, thank you. I didn't know what to say because it's my manager. I can't say anything back. And I went, well, you can, but it is really difficult. It is really difficult to stand up to your manager who's giving you a shouting match, but in an inappropriate manner. Because maybe you deserve the shouting match. It wasn't whether they deserved it or not. I have no idea. But you don't do it in public. Do that in private. Take them to a room, catch them on their next break. I need to chat with you when you're on your break. I just need to ask you something. And talk to them then. Don't dress them down in public. Or I'll start. Because I will. I will have a go. I've done it a few times. And I will do it again. Bite me. Anyway, hang on. Need to click a button. Hang on. Right, need to click button. So the ads will snooze. We have completed our triangle look. We are triangled up. We have completed triangle. I'm going to go back to my testee. Talking of gendered words. I'm really pleased with my test. It does look like I'm on a winner with that one. For those who were not around earlier, my test is that I have made... I'm on the quest, because these have a hard line, I'm on a quest to make curtain number 2 before I even finish curtain number 1. Shut up, right? And I want to make a join that is as invisible as I am capable. Now, I made a couple of strips. These are testee 1, right? For they are being tested. They are the testee, not the tester. And I made these. And I'm not going to move around the camera too much. But as you can see, there is a bold line down the middle. Now, it is only a bold line. It's not a hard, ugly line. It's in pattern. It could be a lot worse. But the reason for the bold line is pretty obvious. Everywhere these threads meet is 4 threads coming together, doing a bit of a dance and buggering off. At this point, there are 4 threads on every leg, and for some of them, 5 as I've bound them together. Therefore, it looks fat because it's fat. It is not an opinion, it is not a derogatory term because, well, I'm fat, but because I am, I can't really pretend that I'm not. It's a bit, I'm not a my 600-pound contestant, but, I've eaten my fair share of junk food, and I will continue to do so. Because I like it, and I'm old. But this bold line is pretty good. It's in keeping with the pattern. It is done, as the knitters would say, it is in pattern. So it has kept the flow of the fabric. But... and that's the thing. It looks quite good in the sense that it is in pattern, so it doesn't look like an almighty fuck-up. Whereas when I join the lines together, they will kind of look... they will look, because there's a hard line, it will look very much like a patchwork quilt. You will see very much the edges and your eyes will be drawn to it. With this, the bold line, I still look at the snakes first. The bold line is in between them. So the snakes stand out more than the bold line. So from that point of view, this join is a success. And it is a contender. But the reason that it is bold is because there's 4 or 5 threads where there should be 2. So, yes, very much a viable fallback. The style of lace is a known and good subject. Let me quickly do a small bit of rearrangement. I need to check what I'm moving where, because I've only got so many places to put things. Hang on. Playing shuffly shuffles. Hang on. Put that down there. That's really the best place for you. Where did you come from? You, my friend, need to be back over there somewhere. Right. So let's see how that goes. Right. You're not going to see very much in this. Well, this is not going to be that apparent because, well, it's still on the magic cushion, right? If I scoot back up a bit. This is testee number 2. Now, I am already working on another strip to find potential other alternatives that may or may not be better for what I had. This, however... Hang on. Right. This, however, has one thread. Look, here it is. One thread that goes round the edge. Therefore, all of these 2 thread ones in the middle, when I join it, the one thread will become 2 and would be invisible. Now, the downside with this one is can't use the same patterns. Or at least I don't think I can use the same patterns. Pretty sure I can't use the same patterns. But once I have joined it and proved that maybe the join is invisible, or I absolutely hate it and can't spare the sanity points to do it, because, well, that is also a thing. If I can do it without losing too many sanity points, and that it is basically invisible, I will then investigate what kind of pattern I want to make my curtain out of, because this will be the answer. So this testee number 2, I have reviewed the data, I have iterated, and now I have a new potential formula. And this, my friends, is it. And so this is what I'm going to work on. This is the same size strip, but I'm obviously only doing half of it, and I'm ignoring any of the pictures on it that I drew on it, because I drew these pictures wrong anyway. So, but I will do something to see if I can do. But I will make some strips. I'm not going to make them hugely long. I'm probably going to do 3 inches or so. But I'm going to make a couple of strips just to see how many sanity points I would lose in the joining. Because if it is too many, we'll stick with the other one, because that actually was quite nice. That worked out really quite practical to do. And I could do it with a slightly thinner thread, so it would be slightly less bulky. But I have testee number 2. Now, obviously, we are not talking testicles. We are talking test cases. But testee number 2 has promise, if nothing else. So, well, I'm going to go off and do this now. But I also need some food, some drink, and so hence not doing on stream. Now we've finished triangle 29. Hurrah for finishing triangle 29. Do you realise that the next one's 30, for Christ's sake? It's right, my brain farted briefly then, thinking that half of 72 was 42 for some reason. Brain, go away, you're drunk. But if this works, I will potentially continue this tomorrow on stream, which probably will not be till... I don't know, it's Monday tomorrow, so I might do an earlier one than like I did today. Or I might do a normal work night level one. We shall see what the day brings me, but you can guarantee I will be making some of this. And these are likely to be plain mesh things, just because I haven't got any plans on a piece of paper as to what I was going to do. So, anyway, I shall see you tomorrow with any luck. If you aren't aware, !Discord. If you join the Discord thing, we don't tend to do a lot of chat too much, but it is good for knowing when I go online. I am going to try and put some vague times in on my calendar. And it will be marked as, ish and potentially optional and all of those kind of things. But I will try and put some stuff in so you know roughly when you can look out for me in advance. But anyway, I shall see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.